I still remember the exact moment her smile broke something inside me. Not loudly, not suddenly, just quietly, like a soft crack under heavy snow, the kind you don't notice until the whole roof starts to collapse. And it happened that Thanksgiving evening, right when I thought our family was finally recovering from all the chaos we had been through. It was supposed to be a peaceful holiday. I had spent 3 days preparing the table, roasting the turkey, setting up the old china our mother used to love, and trying to create something that felt warm, something that felt like home. Because after Mom passed, home didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a memory floating in the air, and every year it drifted farther away. But I was trying. God knows I was trying. My older sister, Laura, walked in last to the dinner table, fashionably late, as always. And even though our relationship had always been complicated, I still wanted her there. I wanted us together, even if the glue holding us was thin and cracking. But I didn't know that by the end of that dinner, it would snap completely. She sat down across from me, crossed her legs, adjusted her expensive-looking sweater, and smiled that perfect polished smile that always looked rehearsed. The kind that belonged on magazine covers, not family gatherings. She waited until everyone had taken their first bite. She waited until the sound of plates and forks filled the silence. She waited until I relaxed just enough to believe, for a few seconds, that things might actually be okay this time. Then she lifted her wine glass, looked directly into my eyes, tilted her head slightly, and said, almost laughing, "The house is mine now. You were never in the will." For a moment the entire room froze. Even the candles seemed to stop flickering. My hands went numb. My breath caught in my chest like I had swallowed a stone. I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand. But her smile told me she had been waiting to say those words. She enjoyed watching my confusion. I stared at her, shaking slightly. What are you talking about?" She sipped her wine slowly and placed the glass down with elegance that made the moment feel even more cruel. "Mom's will. The lawyer called me yesterday. She left the house entirely to me. You were never included." And then, as if she was offering a dessert, she added, "I'll give you until the end of the month to move out." My heart dropped into my stomach. Move out. Move out of the house I cared for. Move out of the house I kept clean, repaired, protected for 3 long years while Laura lived in another state, barely calling. Move out of the only place that still smelled like our childhood. Something was wrong. Something was deeply, painfully wrong. My voice cracked slightly. There must be a mistake. Mom would never leave me out. Took care of her. I took care of everything. That's when she leaned back, crossed her arms, and said the sentence that made everything inside me twist. "You were never as important to her as you thought." Felt like the floor tilted under me. Everyone turned their heads toward her. Shocked, uncomfortable, but nobody spoke. Nobody dared. Because Laura always had a way of controlling the room. She had the confidence, the charm, the money, the connections. And apparently now she had the house too. But something about her tone, something about the way she shifted her eyes, something about the way she avoided looking at the hallway where Mom's framed portrait hung, something told me she wasn't telling the full truth. That night, after everybody left, I sat in the quiet living room staring at Mom's old armchair. My heart still trembling. My mind still echoing her words. And while I stared at that empty spot, a spot where Mom used to read, drink tea, or sometimes just sit and hold my hand, I felt something inside me awaken. Strange, painful clarity. Something didn't add up. Mom would never leave me out. Not after everything we went through. Not after all the nights we spent talking, crying, healing. Not after the promises she made. Laura was lying. And her smile. Her smile wasn't confidence. It was fear. And for the first time, I finally understood that the truth was buried somewhere deeper. Somewhere she desperately didn't want me to look. But I was going to look. Had to. Thanksgiving didn't break me. It woke me up. The next morning I woke up early, but not because I had slept well. I barely slept at all. My mind kept repeating Laura's words like a cold echo bouncing around inside my skull. "The house is mine now. You were never in the will." I couldn't escape it. But when I came downstairs and saw the sunlight falling through the kitchen window, hitting the old wooden cabinets Mom painted by hand, something inside me hardened. Not with anger but with purpose. Mom didn't leave me out. She couldn't have. And if Laura truly believed I would simply accept her announcement and quietly pack my things, then she hadn't been paying attention to me for a very long time. I made myself coffee but barely tasted it. I sat at the table with my notebook, the one where I had written every conversation, appointment date, medication list, and late-night talk during Mom's final year. That notebook held more truth than a legal document ever could. Laura didn't know that. She thought I had nothing. But she was wrong. I opened the notebook and started reading through it slowly, page by page, looking for anything that could explain what was happening. And then I found it. A small handwritten note tucked between the pages, one I had almost forgotten existed. It was from Mom. Just a few lines written shakily, but still filled with her warmth. If Laura and I argue about the house again, please remember, the person who stays deserves the home. The one who cares keeps the heart of this family alive. Trust yourself. You know what is right. My breath hitched. Mom knew there would be conflict. She expected it. She even predicted Laura's behavior. And the person who stays. That was me. Not Laura, who moved out at 20, visited only for holidays, and never stayed long enough to know where Mom kept the spare keys. That note didn't replace a legal will. But it proved something important. Mom's intentions were clear. And if Laura had somehow convinced the lawyer otherwise, or if something had changed at the last minute, or if someone interfered, my stomach tightened. Could Laura? Well, I didn't want to think that yet. But the timing, the secrecy, the smugness, it all pointed to something dark. That day I called the lawyer's office. A woman with a tired but polite voice answered. "Good morning, Anderson Law. How can I help you?" I took a deep breath. "My name is Emily Carter. My mother, Margaret Carter, was your client. I'd like to review her will." There was silence for a moment. Then she replied carefully. "Are you the sibling who lives out of state?" "No," I said slowly. "That's my sister. I'm the one who lived with Mom and handled her care." Another pause. Then something in her voice shifted, like cautious confusion. "Oh, that's strange. The records we have list your sister as the sole contact for the estate." My heart pounded. "What do you mean, sole contact? Mom never changed anything." "She would have." "I'm not allowed to disclose details over the phone," the woman interrupted gently. "But if you come to the office, I can verify your ID and allow you to view the documents." My hands were shaking now. "When is the earliest appointment?" "We're open until 5. I'll be there in 30 minutes. As I hung up, one thing became crystal clear. Laura had already been there. She got there first. She controlled the narrative. She took advantage of my grief, my exhaustion, my trust. And suddenly, Mom's words from that hidden note felt louder. "Trust yourself. You know what is right." I grabbed my coat and keys. If Laura thought she could erase me from Mom's final wishes, she had no idea what I was capable of when cornered. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about the truth. And I was going to find it, whatever it cost. The lawyer's office was quiet when I walked in, the kind of quiet that made your footsteps sound too loud. The walls were covered with framed certificates, polished shelves, and a few pictures of smiling families that looked like they had never experienced betrayal in their lives. A receptionist greeted me with a cautious smile, as though she already knew something uncomfortable was about to happen. "Are you Emily?" she asked gently. "Yes. Please wait here. Mr. Anderson will speak with you shortly." I sat in one of the chairs, gripping my bag tightly, my leg bouncing uncontrollably. I hadn't felt this nervous since the night Mom went into the hospital. Only this time I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of losing everything she left behind. After a few minutes, the lawyer himself appeared. A tall, thin man in his mid-50s with silver hair and glasses that made him look more tired than wise. "Emily," he said with a polite nod. I'm glad you came. I followed him into his office, heart pounding against my ribs. He closed the door softly. Then he looked at me the way doctors look at patients before giving them news they know will break them. I understand you want to review your mother's will, he said. Yes, I whispered. I need to see it myself. He sat down, adjusted his glasses, and opened a file, Mom's file. I recognized her signature immediately, slanted and elegant despite her illness. He turned the papers toward me. And there it was. Single-page will. Simple. Cold. Brutal. Everything, the house, the insurance money, the savings, left entirely to Laura. I felt my chest tighten. My fingers trembled as they touched the edge of the paper. No, this can't be right. Mr. Anderson sighed softly. I suspected you might say that. I looked up sharply. Why? He leaned back in his chair. Because your mother spoke about you. Often. She always emphasized your role in her life, your care, your dedication. I was surprised when the final update came. Final update. My voice cracked. When did that happen? He hesitated. A hesitation that told me everything before he said a single word. 3 days before she passed. My heart dropped. Mom was barely speaking then. Barely awake. Barely responding. How could she change her will? I whispered. She couldn't even hold a pen. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I stared at the signature on the will. Shaky, messy, nothing like the clean writing I saw in the letters she left me. Something was wrong with it. Terribly wrong. Who brought her here? Finally asked. He cleared his throat. Your sister. Course she did. And she insisted the update was urgent, he added carefully. My stomach twisted. Laura had rushed Mom here. 3 days before she passed. When Mom was weakest, tired, emotional, and possibly not even aware of what she was signing. Or worse, she didn't sign it at all. My hands went cold. Mr. Anderson, I said slowly, do you personally believe Mom was capable of making this decision at that time? He pressed his lips together. I can't give an opinion that challenges a legal document. But I can say, I found her condition concerning. And I expressed that concern. To who? To your sister, he said quietly. And what did she say? She insisted your mother was simply having a bad day. And she assured me you approved the changes. Froze. What? He looked directly into my eyes now. Your sister said you agreed. He paused. She said you didn't want the house. I couldn't breathe. She had used my silence, my grief, my exhaustion, as an opportunity. She had lied for me. Lied about me. My voice shook with anger and disbelief. I never said that. I never knew about any changes. She forged my involvement. He closed the folder slowly. I suspected something was amiss. But without proof. Proof. That was the only thing I didn't have. Not yet. But I would find it. Because suddenly everything from Thanksgiving night, everything from her rehearsed smile, everything from her too-fast announcement, finally made sense. She had planned this, and she thought she had won. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. When I left the lawyer's office, the cold air outside felt sharper than it should have. It wasn't even winter yet, but the wind stung against my face as though forcing me to stay awake, stay alert, stay angry. I sat in my car for several minutes, gripping the steering wheel, replaying every detail Mr. Anderson told me. 3 days before Mom passed. Brought in by Laura. A shaky signature. A rushed update. A lie about my approval. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. Laura didn't just take advantage of Mom's weakness. She manipulated the entire situation to her benefit. She made sure she was the only contact. She isolated me from legal decisions. She controlled the narrative. But the cracks were showing. And cracks always widen when the truth begins to surface. I drove home slowly, my mind spinning with questions. Why did she need the house so badly? Why lie with such confidence? Why make the announcement at Thanksgiving, in front of everyone? What was she trying to prove or distract me from? When I walked through the front door, the house felt different. Heavier, like it was holding secrets in its walls. I went to Mom's room, a room I hadn't entered since the funeral. The door creaked open softly, almost like a sigh. Her scent was still there. Lavender lotion, old books, warmth. I stepped inside and felt tears forming. But I couldn't break down. Not yet. I opened her bedside drawer, searching for anything she might have left behind. Birth certificates, letters, photographs. And then I found a small brown envelope taped under the drawer's top panel. My breath caught. Mom always hid things in places only I would think to check. Inside was a folded piece of paper. Another note. Short, cheeky, honest. If something happens suddenly, tell Anderson the truth. Trust you. Do not let fear guide you. Love always wins in the end. My hands trembled. Mom knew. She knew something might happen. She knew I would be left to pick up the pieces. And this note was proof. Not legal proof yet, but emotional proof. Moral proof. Proof that she trusted me, not Laura. I wiped my tears and stood up. If Mom trusted me to uncover the truth, then I wasn't going to let her down. Just then my phone buzzed. A message from Laura. Hey, just checking if you started packing. Need a timeline. Timeline. She wanted me out. Yes. I stared at her message for a long moment. Then I typed back. We need to talk. In person. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. Sure. Tomorrow morning. Perfect. Because tomorrow I wasn't coming to argue. I was coming for the truth. And I was finally ready for what it might reveal. Laura arrived the next morning exactly on time, which already told me something was off. She was never on time for anything that didn't benefit her directly. But today she stood at the door at 9 a.m. sharp, coat perfectly pressed, hair flawless, makeup soft but expensive looking. She came prepared. Or at least she thought she did. I opened the door and stepped aside. Come in. Her eyes scanned the hallway, the familiar photographs, the furniture. But this time, there was a different look on her face. Not nostalgia. Not sadness. Possession. She already saw everything as hers. We went into the kitchen, the same place where Mom used to sit and listen to us argue about everything and nothing. For a second, I could almost feel her presence in the room, and it gave me strength. Laura sat down at the table and crossed her legs, eyes fixed on me. So, she said in a tone that tried to sound casual, have you decided when you'll move out? I watched her carefully. She expected a fight. She expected tears. She expected me to beg. Instead, I gave her something else. I went to see Mr. Anderson, I said calmly. Her smile flickered. Just for a second. But I saw it. Tiny crack. Oh, she replied. That was fast. Yes. Well, you know me. I like to understand things I'm supposedly not part of. I let that hang in the air. She shifted in her seat. What did he say? I leaned against the counter, arms folded, pretending to be more relaxed than I felt. He showed me the will. The new one. The one you helped Mom sign 3 days before she died. Her expression remained carefully neutral, but her eyes sharpened. Right, she said slowly. The update. She wanted to make sure the house stayed with someone responsible. I almost laughed at the irony, but I held it in. Interesting, I said. Because Mr. Anderson also told me you said I agreed with the changes. She froze. It was subtle, a slight tightening of her jaw, a tiny pause before she answered. But I noticed everything now. Well, she said, forcing a shrug. We both knew you didn't want to be tied down to this house forever. You always said that, remember? You wanted to travel, start over somewhere else. I just assumed you'd. No, I cut in. You didn't assume. You decided. For me. And you lied to him. Her eyes narrowed. Careful, Emily, she said, her tone suddenly colder. Throwing around words like lie isn't going to help you. I took a deep breath. I had promised myself I wouldn't let my anger drown my strategy. Laura, I said more softly now. I took care of Mom for 3 years. I've slept in this house, cried in this house, fixed this house, paid bills in this house. Do you really expect me to believe she just erased me from her will overnight? And you just happened to be the one to draft everything? Her lips curled into a half-smile. Not kind. Not loving. You sound dramatic, she replied. Mom made a choice. She trusted me with the house. It doesn't mean she didn't love you. It just means she knew I'd make better use of it. I have plans. I can sell it, invest, maybe buy something in the city. You don't even like this town. I stared at her, stunned. That's what this is about, I whispered. Money. She rolled her eyes. Everything is about money, Em. You just pretend it's not. Someone has to be practical. I studied her for a long moment, and something finally clicked in my mind, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. Her sudden interest in the house. Her urgency. Her cruel timing. You're in debt, aren't you? I asked quietly. Her eyes flashed for a second. Then she looked away. Just for a moment. Don't be ridiculous, she muttered. But the truth had already slipped out, not from her mouth, but from her reaction. I stepped closer to the table. I'm not stupid, Laura. And I'm done playing the quiet, naive sister who just accepts whatever crumbs you decide to throw her way. Mom trusted both of us. And you used her weakest moment to rewrite her final wishes. She leaned forward now, her voice low and sharp. You have no proof. There it was. The sentence that told me exactly what I needed to hear. She wasn't denying it because it wasn't true. She was denying it because she believed she had outplayed me. But what she didn't know was that I already had more than she expected. Proof wasn't just a single document. Proof was patterns. Proof was testimony. Proof was doubt in the right people's minds. I smiled, not out of happiness, but out of a new kind of strength I didn't know I had. You're right, I said softly. Right now, I don't have all the proof I need. She relaxed slightly. But I will, I added. Her face hardened again. This conversation is going nowhere, she snapped. You have until the end of the month. After that, I start legal proceedings to evict you. I'm done arguing. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and headed toward the door. But before she left, she turned around and added one last line, dripping with false pity. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Emily. Accept reality. It's over. She walked out, closed the door, and the sound echoed through the hallway. I stood there in the silence, feeling my chest rise and fall quickly. She thought it was over. But for me, it was just beginning. Because in that conversation, I didn't just hear her lies. I heard her fear. And fear always leaves a trail. I knew I couldn't go up against her with just anger and suspicion. That's how people lose. They go to war with feelings while the other side uses documents and signatures. So I decided to do both. Feel everything. And still be smart. First, I went back to the lawyer. Mr. Anderson looked surprised to see me again so soon. But this time I wasn't just a grieving daughter. I was something else. I need to understand exactly what happened the day Mom signed that update, I said, sitting straight, my hands steady. He nodded slowly. I can tell you what I remember. As a human being, not just as a lawyer. Please, I whispered. He took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, and leaned back. Your mother was weak, he said. Her breathing was shallow, her voice thin. When your sister brought her in, she did most of the talking. Your mother seemed confused at times. She hesitated before signing. She asked me twice what day it was. My stomach turned. Did she understand what she was signing? Yes. He took a long breath. I'm not a doctor. But if you want my honest personal impression. No. Not fully. It was like someone had poured ice water into my veins. And you still let her sign? I asked, trying not to sound accusatory but failing. His face tightened with guilt. I raised concerns, he said softly. I told your sister that her condition made it questionable whether she was fully competent to make such a big decision. But your sister insisted. She said your mother had been planning this for months. She said you both talked and agreed that this was just paperwork catching up with reality. My chest ached. How did Mom sign? I asked. Her hand was so weak at the end. He nodded slowly. She struggled. The signature doesn't match her usual one perfectly. If someone challenged it, there might be questions, especially when combined with her medical records from that week. Medical records. A new piece of the trail. I stood up. Thank you, I said. You've helped more than you know. As I reached for the door, he called after me. Emily. Turned. For what it's worth, he said. Your mother spoke very highly of you. Every time. If this goes to court, I can't take sides. But facts are facts. And I will not lie for anyone. That was all I needed to hear. Next, I went to the hospital. The nurse at the front desk was new, but when I explained my situation and showed her my ID, she directed me to the records department. An older nurse there recognized Mom's name immediately. Oh, Margaret, she said with a sad smile. She was lovely, always thanking us for every little thing. She was, I whispered. I need her records for her last week. Especially the day she left the hospital to sign something with her lawyer. Her expression shifted. That was a difficult day, she said, typing into the system. She was very weak. We had to help her to the car. She almost fell. I swallowed hard. Was my sister with her? Yes. Yes. She rushed the process. Signed the discharge papers, insisted she'd bring your mom back later, but... She trailed off, her eyes soft with sympathy. She never did. My throat tightened. Mom never came back. Because 3 days later she was gone. The nurse printed some documents and slid them into a folder. These show her condition, she said gently. Her oxygen levels, notes about confusion, fatigue, disorientation. If you're planning to contest something, this might help. Contest. That word sounded heavy. Serious. Real. I am, I said quietly. I don't want to fight my sister, but I can't let this stand. The nurse nodded. You're not fighting her, she said. You're standing up for your mother's dignity. Her words hit me deeply. This wasn't just revenge. This was protection. When I left the hospital, I called one more person. Someone I hadn't spoken to since the funeral. Our aunt, Mom's older sister, who lived 2 towns away. She picked up after the second ring. Emily, she said, surprised. Sweetheart, how are you? I almost broke down just at the sound of her voice. I'm surviving, I said. I need to ask you something. It's about Mom. About her will. Oh, I wondered when this would come up, she said slowly. Your mother told me she was worried. Worried about what? I asked, heart pounding. About Laura, she replied. About pressure. Your mother called me months before she died and said she felt like Laura was pushing her to make things official about the house. But every time she talked to me alone, she said the same thing. The one who stays should have the house. And that was you, Emily. Always you. My eyes filled with tears. She told you that. Many times, my aunt said gently. If anyone says otherwise, they're not telling the whole truth. Closed my eyes. Pieces. So many pieces. Mom's note in my notebook. Mom's hidden message in the drawer. The lawyer's doubt. The nurse's description. My aunt's testimony. One more thing remained. I went home, sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and began reading about undue influence, contesting a will, lack of capacity. The words were dry, clinical, but underneath them I saw my mother's face. Her tired eyes. Her soft hands. Her trust. This wasn't just about money or property. It was about someone using love as a weapon. And for the first time in my life, I decided I wouldn't let Laura get away with it. Not again. Not this time. I picked up my phone and dialed a new number. A lawyer who specialized in estate disputes, someone recommended by a friend of Aunt's. When he answered, I spoke clearly, my voice steady. Hi. My name is Emily Carter. I think my mother's last will was changed under pressure when she was too weak to decide. And I'm ready to do something about it. The hearing wasn't dramatic in the way movies make it look. There were no shouting matches, no banging on tables, no slow clapping. Just paperwork, calm voices, controlled expressions, and a quiet tension you could almost taste. But for me, it felt like the most intense moment of my entire life. Laura sat on the opposite side of the room, in a fitted blazer, hair immaculate, posture perfect. She looked like someone who belonged in a courtroom. Confident, composed, untouchable. I didn't look like that. I was nervous, human, real. But I wasn't alone. My lawyer sat beside me. Mr. Anderson was present as a witness. The nurse had provided a written statement and had agreed to testify by call. Mom's notes were presented carefully, respectfully, not as legal wills, but as indicators of her intentions. Laura's lawyer opened first. He painted a picture of a responsible, successful daughter, Laura, who stepped in to handle things when her mother was nearing the end. He emphasized how difficult those days were, how decisions had to be made quickly, how my emotional attachment to the house made me unrealistic. I listened, jaw tight, fingers clenched under the table. Then it was our turn. My lawyer started slow. He didn't attack. He asked questions. "Mr. Anderson," he said, "did you have any concerns about Margaret Carter's ability to understand the document she was signing on that final visit?" "Yes," Mr. Anderson said, voice steady. "She seemed disoriented, fatigued, and unsure of certain details." "Did you express these concerns?" "Yes." "To her daughter, Laura. Did Emily approve those changes?" He looked right at me, then at Laura. "No," he said. "I never spoke to Emily about them." A tiny crack in Laura's armor. My lawyer continued. He presented Mom's medical records. Her low oxygen levels, her confusion, the nurse's notes about disorientation and fatigue. He explained gently but clearly how these factors mattered when someone signed a major legal document. Then he read from the nurse's written statement. Patient was assisted into a car by daughter, who insisted on taking her out despite patient's visible weakness and staff recommendations for rest. The room felt heavier with every word. Next came Aunt's testimony on speakerphone. "My sister told me many times," she said, voice trembling slightly, "that the one who stayed with her, who cared for her, who lived in the house, that person should have it. She always meant Emily. She never mentioned leaving everything to just one child." And then, it was my turn. My lawyer asked me to explain in my own words what the house meant to me, what those final years with Mom were like, and how I found her notes. So I spoke. Not with theatrics. Not with rehearsed lines. I just told the truth. I told them about the nights I sat beside Mom's bed, holding her hand. About the mornings I made her tea, even when she was too weak to drink more than a sip. About the repairs I made in the house, the bills I kept up with, the life I put on hold to be here with her. I told them about the note in my notebook, the hidden message taped under the drawer. Her exact words. "The person who stays deserves the home." I could see Laura tense more with each sentence. Finally, my lawyer asked the question I had been waiting for. "Emily, did you ever tell your sister or Mr. Anderson that you didn't want the house?" "No," I said firmly. "Never. Not once." Silence. Then it was Laura's turn to speak. She straightened, lifted her chin, and did what she did best. Performed. She talked about responsibility, about acting quickly, about wanting to secure the estate. She said Mom told her privately that she wanted her to have the house, that she trusted her more financially, that I was too emotional, that I wouldn't know what to do with the property. But when my lawyer asked for proof, a message, an email, even a text, she had nothing. Just words. "Your Honor," my lawyer said finally, "this is not a case of one sister being favored over another. This is a case of a sick, weakened woman being guided, or pushed, into a decision she didn't fully understand, under the influence of someone who benefited from that confusion." The judge, a calm woman with tired eyes, sat in silence for a moment, reading through the files again. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Then she spoke. Given the medical records, the testimony from the lawyer, the statements from the hospital staff, and the inconsistency between Margaret Carter's long-stated intentions and this final last-minute will, she paused, I find sufficient grounds to question the validity of the final document. My heart jumped. She continued. The last-minute will is voided. The estate will default to the previous valid will on record. My lawyer nodded. I felt my breath come back into my lungs. The previous will, the judge said, scanning the papers, leaves the house to both daughters jointly, with a stipulation that it remain the primary residence of Emily Carter unless both parties agree to sell. Tears filled my eyes. The room blurred for a moment. I hadn't just kept the house. I had kept Mom's intent alive. Laura stared straight ahead, her face pale, jaw tight. She didn't look at me. Not once. The judge finished with a final note. This case is a reminder, she said softly, that end-of-life decisions must be made with clarity and care, and that pressure, even from family, can lead to outcomes that do not reflect a person's true wishes. We stood up. The hearing was over. But the story wasn't. Because as I walked out of that room, passing by my sister, I saw something in her eyes I had never really seen before. Not superiority. Not smugness. Fear. And something else. A tiny flicker of shame. Life didn't magically become perfect after that day. There was no sudden healing, no emotional fireworks, no tearful apology that fixed everything. The house didn't shine brighter. The rooms didn't suddenly feel lighter. The pain didn't disappear. But something did change. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Legally, the house was now protected by the earlier will. I couldn't be thrown out. I wouldn't be forced to pack my life into boxes and leave the last place that still felt like Mom. But beyond the legal paperwork, something deeper shifted inside me. I stopped seeing myself as the weaker sister, the one who stayed, the one who sacrificed, the one who didn't know how the real world works. Because the truth was, I knew something Laura didn't. How to live with my conscience. A week after the hearing, Laura showed up at the door again. No announcement this time. No smug smile. Just her in a plain coat, looking smaller than I remembered. I opened the door and hesitated. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey," I replied. We stood there for a few seconds that felt like hours. "Can we talk?" she asked. Part of me wanted to say no. Shut the door. To protect my peace. But another part of me, the part Mom raised, stepped aside. "Yeah," I said. "Come in." We sat in the living room, the air thick but calm. She looked around, eyes softening when they fell on Mom's armchair. "I used to hate this house," she said suddenly. And blinked. "What?" She gave a bitter half-smile. "Growing up, I always thought this place was too small. Too old. Too limiting. You loved it. I felt trapped by it. I listened in silence. I thought if I had money, success, city life, I'd never feel small again," she continued. "But it doesn't work that way. Debts pile up. People you trust use you. And then suddenly, the house you used to hate becomes the one thing that can fix everything. So you tried to take it," I said quietly. She flinched, but she didn't deny it. "I told myself Mom wanted this," she whispered. "I told myself you'd be fine. That you'd figure it out. That I was the smart one. The one who knew what to do. It was easier than admitting I was just desperate." There it was. The truth stripped of excuses. "I was angry," I said. "I still am. You didn't just hurt me. You used Mom's last days as a bargaining chip." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "And I can't undo it. I can't unsign that paper. I can't unsay what I said at Thanksgiving. I was cruel. I wanted you to feel small because I was terrified I'd already lost." I let her words sink in. I had dreamed of this moment, the confession, the vulnerability, the explanation, but now that it was here, it didn't feel victorious. Felt heavy. Because revenge had never been the real goal. I hadn't gone to court to destroy her. I had gone to protect what was right. "There were 100 other ways you could have asked for help," I said. "You could have been honest. You could have told me you were drowning. I would have tried to help. She nodded, tears spilling now. I didn't want you to see me weak, she choked out. You were always the soft one, Em. I thought if you saw me fall apart, I'd never be able to look you in the eye again. I breathed out slowly. I guess we both misunderstood each other, I said. You thought I was weak because I stayed. I thought you were stronger because you left. But look at us now. We both glanced around the room. This house survived you, I added softly. And it survived me. A small, sad smile tugged at her lips. So what now, she asked. Do you want me completely out of your life? Because if that's what you need to be okay, I'll accept it. I looked at her, really looked at her. Not as the villain of my story. Not as the girl who stole my house. But as a deeply flawed, deeply scared, deeply human sister who had made terrible choices. I don't know if I can forgive you fully yet, I said honestly. I don't think forgiveness is a switch you flip. It's a process. She nodded. But, I continued, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to punish you. The court already did what needed to be done. Mom's wishes were honored. That's enough for me. Her shoulders sagged with relief and grief mixed together. I'll figure things out, she said softly. I won't ask you for money. I won't touch the house. But maybe one day, if you're okay with it, we can have dinner here. Not to talk about wills or houses. Just to remember her. My throat tightened. Maybe, I said. One day. When it doesn't hurt this much. She nodded and stood up. At the door she paused and turned back. For what it's worth, she said, voice shaking. Mom was right. The one who stays deserves the home. When she left, I walked to the window and watched her drive away. The road stretched out in front of her, full of choices only she could make now. I stayed where I was. I went into Mom's room, sat in her armchair, and let the quiet settle around me. The late afternoon light warmed the walls. The house no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like what it was always meant to be. Home. I traced the pattern on the armrest and thought about everything I had finally understood. I understood that love doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. I understood that family can hurt you more deeply than anyone else, and still be worth grieving over. I understood that standing up for yourself doesn't make you cruel. Makes you whole. Most importantly, I understood what Mom had tried to teach me in her quiet, gentle way. That real power isn't in controlling others, taking their share, or winning on paper. Real power is being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I did the right thing, even when it hurt. At Thanksgiving, when Laura smiled and said, The house is mine now. You were never in the will. I thought my entire world had been ripped away. But now I see it differently. That moment didn't destroy me. It revealed everything. It showed me who my sister really was. Showed me who I really was. It showed me what Mom truly left behind. Not just a house, but a lesson. Protect what is right, even if the person you're standing up to shares your last name. Because betrayal may break your heart. But truth, if you're brave enough to follow it, can finally set it free.